Yes, good. Okay. Rasuhna is from Canada. She is currently chair of Subud Education, I believe.
Subud Education Association, yeah. Association.
Subud Education Association. That's it. She and I have one or two things in common. We were both opened in the 60s. We have both taught all over the world. We are both poets, but unlike me, Rasuhna has real academic abilities as well, because I've been reading a book that she's been writing about, that she wrote about the pattern of process in the world, which is very learned, very well put together. She is part Native American, I believe. Is that right, Rasuhna?
Yep, correct.
So, and that is an important part of who she is and how she sees the world. I've only read two of her poems. I loved both of them. One of them was in here. And this is a book which is available from lulu.com, and any proceeds from the sales of this go to SICA. And the other poem that I read by her was at the beginning of her PhD thesis, and both of these poems have a strong imagery of water in them. Do you recognize that, Rasuhna?
Yes, I do. I do.
Waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
That's your thesis poem, and the other one is Where the Water Still Flows. That's the name of your poem. I wanted to read one verse from your poem, and then I'll shut up.
I'll read it also.
Okay. Lest you forget, you live in more than one world, and the shape is cut from the wood, not the wood from the shape. And you come from your maker, but your maker does not come from you. I love that verse. I will say no more. Rasuhna.
Okay.
Go for it.
Go for it. I'm going to read about 8 poems, and they come from, the first 3 come from this book. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Dancing the Rounds, and it was published by Dream Stairway Books in the UK by Raymond Foster and his brother. So I don't know if anyone came across any other of their publications, but Raymond has since passed away, like a lot of people I know. But in any case, the first poem I wanted to read comes from, it's the signature poem for that collection, and the title is Dancing the Rounds. This page and I dance by lamplight in nights before modern conveniences. I join hands with the ancestors who jigged and drank through log cabin living rooms in the rugged bays of lakesides, whose tree-scraped skies were cluttered with the spirits of world wars. And I join hands with all the brown-eyed children lost or abused, and the families whose spirits are still being broken by anger and greed. By the shadowy flicker of lamplight, I step gingerly over borders centuries old and watch the repetitive fall of kingdoms and the lives of princes and saints unfold. In fields of revelation unceasing, exquisite orchids grow. As I drive to this valley, ringed with the history of desert survival, loved ones past and present recede into landscape, are submerged in memory, so many leaves under snow. The wake of creation is littered with the detritus of what we are, as under a lens, still transparencies, or only so many hurled stars, are traced onto the page, fleetingly, until it is folded and yellowed. In the dance of worlds, the pulse of blood through our hearts, enlivens the play of words. In time which sanctifies, or existence which typifies, the natural illumination of all things, between particles of dust which permeate the air we breathe, between shadows irradiated by lamplight on the screen, dust, leaves, stars scatter, are folded away. Okay. And then the second poem is written after reading an Indonesian heroine who was also a princess, Javanese princess, and her name is Kartini. She advocated the education of girls. She opposed polygamy, and her letters were collected into the book Letters of a Javanese Princess. So the title is Kartini Sends a Cloud Message. Politicians, kings, warriors, lovers, millionaires, beloved of gods. I see them, and they cannot contain everything you are or shall be. How did I understand this? The mirror of future past reflects what is there to be read. Think what you have gained. You who stand upon the insignificance of your losses, don't cry out when you are called. That is the way. Hear your name. Know who calls. Cover your face and bow down. The third poem is titled Passports to Heaven, and it is for Bapak, written for Bapak. 1. Did you go to a woman's back door, barefoot and humbly dressed, and asked to see her there? Yes, I did. And was she the one you loved? Yes, she was. I stood at the gate and called her name. 2. After grandfather bids us good night, suddenly again, time quickens. Traffic jams the roadways of the forgiven and those who still despair. Smiles glisten and most fade, while children light firecrackers in the haste of night. 3. It is you who is the dreamer, and we who are the dream. You who is the garden and the gardener, each of us a single seed planted. The mind empties, plans are suspended, the elders fly to you like moths, youngest cry without reason. In this limbo of your absence, the earth trembles with thirst. In the stillness, the grave opens, and we see more deeply into it than ever before, into the center of the earth or of the universe. It seems we are looking everywhere. Please lay flowers for us, white and gold, from the next world to this, that we may be guided by their sweetest of scents. We lay flowers for you here, that someday we may return to you, grandfather, in our heart of hearts. The next two pieces are anecdotal prose, creative prose. The title of this one is The Story I Didn't Tell at the Mother's Day Dinner Table a Few Years Back. Many years ago, 100 spirits gathered around the great Manitou. He gave them each a sacred shell and told them to give it to the people they found and report back to him. Off they went and returned some days later, returning 99 shells. What happened? Asked Gitchi Manitou. We went all over, but everyone we met had their heads bowed, they said. No matter how close to them we came, they just kept their heads down. Oh, poor me, why don't I have any gifts? Why doesn't someone give me anything? The spirits described how all the people they met were fighting. Some were arguing, others looking for gold, others were killing each other, others were too busy eating, this kind of thing. How could we give the shells to them? They didn't even bother to look up. Well, where did the other shell go then? Asked Gitchi Manitou. We gave it to the one who could see us, they replied. Oh, that is good, replied Gitchi Manitou. Many are surrounded by gifts, but cannot see them. Next piece. This is a little riddle I posed to two Native university classes to guess what the one-word answer might be. And the first class, which was not based in my own First Nation, couldn't get the answer. And the second class, which was in Ontario, which was from my father's nation, got the answer in about 5 minutes. So, title of this piece is Sacred Waterfall. A long river runs across the top of the top of the world. The only way the beings know this river exists is because in a sacred place, there is a waterfall. The waterfall is the most beautiful waterfall the beings have ever seen. From a high place it falls in millions upon millions of droplets, perhaps billions of countless individual droplets, and miraculously, each and every droplet rejoins each and every companion droplet at the bottom of the waterfall and forms a river again, a river whose end no one has ever seen. The beings have tried to follow it to the ends of the world, but no one has been able to say where this river ends. Great Creator God, who is the being? Who is the being who will tell me the name of this excruciatingly beautiful waterfall? I'll collect answers from you after I finish reading. This is the poem that Stephanie and Emmanuel published in their anthology, Where the Water Still Flows. I keep hearing she's a thinker, but she likes to stay in the village, where the water still flows in the stream past her house and his, and links them all together. You can take the village out of the woman when she's holed up in that condo, but you can't take the woman out of the village when she's in that village. Lest you forget, you live in more than one world, and the shape is cut from the wood, not the wood from the shape. And you come from your maker, but your maker does not come from you. Mind and heart, of course, are not separated, and which is derived from who does not matter. But I go by the elder of the two when push comes to shove, and sometimes it does. Never could figure out where those thoughts came from. They all like to tell me they came from my brain, but I felt them like lightning bolts coursing my veins. Those streams that ran past my window were in my dreams, and my dreams were in me, but I always ran wondering through the village from which I came, how far I had run and how much farther I needed to run. And the village ran through my dreams. and my dreams ran through the streams where the water still flows. Second to last poem is called Watermark. While I was thinking common thoughts such as, let us create work that does no harm, prayers for our mutual well-being and for the satisfaction that comes from the soul, that was when I felt the arrival of the angel whose presence was a massive watermark in that moment in time, out front of the shops, filling up the skyscape while I sat in the car. The only signifier a few words from an inconsequential dream. I thought to myself, I don't need to hide my doubt in your presence. I need not fear. I have ikhlas. You will ensure that my actions will be in accordance with God's will. I know you will carry my secrets to the womb of heaven. What is fearing no evil if it is not the capacity to walk through the shadows of death? And I think, Rasuhna, are you there somewhere? No, I don't see her.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you are. Okay.
But just let me. Oh no, I can't do it. It doesn't work.
All right. Trying to think what I can do about this. I don't think I can do anything.
Let me. Okay.
All right, should I start reading?
Yes.
Here's the last poem called Sera Sera. It's written at the time of Papa's passing. I will tell you a secret. It's not the kind of thing you say to just anyone you don't know very well at all. Someone once said, time is all we have. But just to let you know, one day I started a painting, a beautiful painting of a grand piano, because I recalled the days I played them in concert, and the red felt at the back of the keys transfixed me. There was something fascinating about that touch and design. Anyhow, someone crucially important to me had died, and for some reason I got sick, and the doctor said it was myocardial infarction, in lay terms, which means heart attack, according to the ECG, which didn't make much sense to me, except for the fact I was so weak I had to lie on the cold slate tile floor rather than move around much because my heart would beat irregularly, so that every so often it would feel as though it wasn't going to beat again. And I'd be listening and waiting crumpled on the floor until the next heartbeat came. And then it would come. Very strange. I lost all track of time. In retrospect, I believe this diagnosis, and the doctor agreed, could have come from a viral infection. So maybe that's just how I was affected, because since then, I never had that kind of thing happen again. It took about 3 weeks to get over it. But in the high point of the sickness, a light but steady fever, I was painting this picture, which I no longer have. And it was freehand, but perfect. No rulers or tape measures. I tried string, but it wouldn't behave or stay put on the canvas. So at the high point I mentioned, I was painting middle C, and God help me if it didn't look like a casket to me in my imagination, but not in reality. I kept thinking I was going to fall into it. And for some reason, I spent the most time painting that particular key amongst all other keys in the painting. And I have some bad photographs of it, but it still gives you an idea of the painting. But middle C, being the most difficult, as I explained, somewhere in my brain, I figured if I could just get finished with that key, I would be okay. I felt this desperation to keep going, and that's what I did. I kept going so I could get to the next bit of life between heartbeats. So that's what happened. The original concept was the translation of the senses. Seeing is hearing, or at least that's what I was thinking. You see something which inspires you to sing or write this poem, for example, or you hear something which inspires you to paint. Something like that. Something like this. Finito.
You're muted, Rasunah.
Yeah, I opened every microphone. You can open your microphone again.
Rasunah's muted. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh dear,
Who's
no
this?
comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Rasunah.
you.
Oh, it's
Thank
delightful.
you.
It was wonderful.
Thanks, Halima.
That was
Yeah.
a rich
I
experience.
can't decide which one I like best. I liked so many.
Yeah.
I like Waterfall.
Yeah, me too, like the water one.
Oh, you did? Waterfall. The case Sera Sera was written around the time of Babak's death. And the one that is the passport of heaven is it goes, did you go to a woman's back door? And then the second part is after grandfather bids us goodnight. That's written about the end of the fast in Wisma Subud. And then the third part about he who is the dreamer and we who are the dream is about the time after the passing of Bapak. So what happened then was all of the people in Wisma Subud and Pamelang went to the gravesite for 40 days in a row.
Right.
So they go there at any time, 40 days in a row. So this is quite a feat following Ramadan, and that's part of what I was feeling when I say the elders fly to you like moths, because a number of other Subud members also passed away during that period of time in Wisma Subud.
Thank you. I'm curious about the answer to your query. I think I probably fall into the first class that didn't quite get it.
Any guesses?
Right.
Who's got a one-word guess? Anyone?
Sounds like
Yeah.
rain. It's
Like
rain to
humanity.
me.
Humanity.
Got it. It's humanity.
Humanity. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, humanity or mankind. One of the.
Yeah.
Womankind. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right.
Rasuna, I have a question. You used the term grandfather.
Yes.
Is there a special indigenous meaning to that term?
Well, grandfather, is the respect accorded to elders in First Nations communities. So it's a title of respect that is accorded to anyone who is a knowledge keeper or an advisor in Native communities.
Can I ask you?
Have a sense?
Sorry.
Can I ask this one? I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. As someone who comes from indigenous communities and someone who has delved deeply into metaphysics, and has done Lad Hand since 1969. Do you have a sense, Rasuhna, of the meaning of what is going on in the world now?
I'm pretty sure that's not a question that I can answer appropriately, but I do have heard that it is not only a medical problem. I think
Right.
someone got into trouble for mentioning it was also, you know, coming from the ancestors or being part of the mistakes that we have made in our lives. So you can take it that way. I think, you know, just personally, as you go through Ramadan, you come across kinds of issues or things that you need to resolve, and that may have something to do with your relatives or others who you are close to. That's about the best way I can answer that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question, Rasuna, about, thank you, Emmanuel. Can I ask a question about your creative process? Do these poems come to you like the start of them, and do you have an idea? How does that work for you, or does it vary?
It's really hard to say, because it just, once I start writing, there's no problem. It just comes one after the other, one line after the other. But you know, the creative process starts, you know, a while before that, you know, because I might be thinking certain things that interest me or that I'm reflecting on, and I don't know. I guess there's an aesthetic that arises through what I'm thinking, and then all of a sudden I think, oh, I got to write this down. So it's like that. Yeah.
Can I ask a second question? Does the laddie hand ever figure in your writing, in your creation?
Oh yeah. The writing is. I'll give you an experience that I had when Bubba passed away, because I was basically, you know, a writer is an observer or a recorder of some kind. So I had seen all of the events and had been at the last get together in Bubba's house the night that he passed away. So there were a multitude of things that happened. And then Luke McKeel and others were writing some of their experiences, and that was in a talk or in a book of Bappa's last talks. I think it was Remembrances. Yeah, it was called. So, and I wrote a structure for that book, and I sent it over to Luke McKeel, but then I decided, well, I'm going to write this down. So the things that I've been experiencing for the past 24 hours, and it wouldn't come down. It wouldn't go from the brain to the finger to the hand that was writing. So that is an example of what can occur, you know, when writing. It's all of a sudden it stops just like that. So I really feel that it is connected to my inner self. I've written a lot of garbage, but not a lot. Do you know what I mean? So I've got to the point where, you know, when I write something of a poem or a creative piece, then I haven't wasted a lot of time trying this draft or that draft. And in fact, you know, I don't like to go through several drafts. I just can't be bothered. If I have to go through something 3 times, then I'm going to throw it out. So sort of like that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Rasuhna, I appreciate the references to things that are in the history of my own Subud life in your work. And some things that my mind has forgotten about come right alive again when I hear you talk or read or about going to Sukamulia or being in Wisma Subud in Ramadan and after Bapa died and so forth. So I'm glad to hear you sharing it. And I have a question for Rosita. Will this chat afterwards, from which I'm learning by hearing Rasuna's answers to people's questions, be included on the YouTube part?
In the moment, yes. So I record it, and I record it. So if someone of you think that's not good that we share this, then I can cut it out. But I think it's nice.
And I want to add a little bit as former Subud Writers International chair. I made a collection. I think Emmanuel has it. I made a collection of all of the talks or all of the points that Bubba made about writing. And at one time he said that language is a vehicle. It's, but the important thing is the content of the language. Excuse me. So to me, it seems that you need to have a feeling of the content that you're conveying in the writing. And that's part of the reason why I can be sometimes sloppy with my words, because I know I have a feeling from my own being of what it is I'm trying to convey. So it might take a less formal or more casual kind of feel or in the writing, in the words, but that may be a way to convey the content. Does that make sense? I think, yeah. Good. When we were in the, I think it was the Congress right after Bubba's passing, which was in Australia, we had a big meeting and we went through a number of these quotes of Bubba on writing. So it was, I thought it was wonderful that we were able to do that we were able to still refer to some of the information Bubba had given us about these things. So,
Rasuhna, where can we access this information?
I have it. I don't know if Emmanuel, do you have it too? Do you have the?
No, I don't have it.
Okay, I do. Yeah, so you can email me if you want a copy of those files, and I can send them to you. I don't think there's probably about 3 MS Word document files. So, yeah.
What's your email? Do you put it in chat?
We can add it if you like, Rasuna. We can add your email address to the YouTube.
Sure.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. So I guess that's a way of saying that we have the language, which is a vehicle as writers, but there is also the content of the writing, which, you know, maybe it could be that Subud writers pay more attention to that than other writers. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
We're good? Okay.
Yeah.
I think.
We're good?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Hi, Laura.